Chapter 761, When is this going to end? The heavy pounding on the door made Lu Shu confused. When he opened the door, he saw Chen Zuan and the rest standing nervously outside. Lu Shu asked, "Why? What happened?" Immediately Lu Xiaoyu searched the house, but there was nobody hiding inside. Still in shock, Chen Zuan answered, "That's what we wanted to ask you, Brother Shu. Do you not know what you just said in the house? Whose karma were you referring to?" "Oh, that." Lu Shu was stunned. He did not expect his physical form to speak the same thing as his magical consciousness. Well, it seemed that he had to be more careful next time. However, that did not affect his good mood at all. He explained himself with a wide grin, "It's nothing. I'm fine. There's nothing to worry about. By the way, do we have a teacher yet?" The others looked at one another, confused. As it turned out, Lu Shu did not pay any attention to school at all, even though he had been visiting the lab every day. "Are you hiding something from us, Brother Shu?" asked Chen Zuan. "What are you doing? You seem absent-minded recently." Lu Shu replied with as much patience as he could muster, "Can't tell you." From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 199. In fact, it was openly acknowledged that Lu Shu could access more classified information due to his higher position. Thus, it was possible that Lu Shu had been working on a secret assignment that the rest had no right to know. Nonetheless, Lu Shu had always been in a hurry when he came and left the school, as though he could not wait to do something. Each day, he only turned up in Luotian Cultivation College for a short while without doing anything. Moreover, sometimes Chen Zuan even believed that Lu Shu was not listening to his words at all. But now, he looked different, as if his soul had just returned to his body after completing a grand wish. Actually, it was literally true. Back then, Nieting had put in so much effort to send Lu Shu overseas. Now that he was back, the examinations had already been over. Worse still, he had been denied attendance for the makeup tests. Furthermore, he was now an audit student, which was rather annoying. Then, he had even turned the entire batch of species research students at Luotian Cultivation College into a team committed to capturing wild mutated creatures. Their hatred for each other had truly become deep-rooted. Thus, Lu Shu's very first plan after he discovered his ability to quickly expand the boundary of the Seal of Lands was to upset Nieting, instead of using it to solve the potential threat of mutated species. All practitioners required spirit qi for cultivation, and even Nieting needed it to achieve resonance between his sword and the world because only in this way could he channel the spirit qi into his body. As a result, the Luhai Lane would be in a spirit qi vacuum as long as the Seal of Lands was in Lu Shu's possession. However, Lu Shu would stop once Nieting apologized to him. Yet, it seemed quite unlikely as Nieting was the boss of the Heavenly Network. As the sure winner of the game, Lu Shu decided to be more generous towards the loser. He would consider being nicer to Nieting if he allowed him to be an official student and stopped annoying him in all thinkable and unthinkable ways. The thought made Lu Shu giggle again, which gave the rest goosebumps. What the hell? Had Lu Shu really gone mad? In the span of merely a few minutes, Lu Shu had seen multiple entries of distress points from Nieting. Despite the decrease in the number of points each time, Lu Shu felt rather relieved nonetheless. In fact, he had once considered pushing the border of the seal northward or southward all the way till overseas. However, that required large-scale expansion which could not be accomplished anytime soon given his current abilities. Furthermore, truth be told, he could barely wait to annoy Nieting. Lu Shu decided not to explain much. "All right. I've got stuff on. I'll tell you more tomorrow in school." Meanwhile, in the Luhai Lane, Shuejin was lying on a couch. His face was covered by a thread-bound book, as if he was sleeping. However, his trembling body as a result of suppressed laughter gave him away. Perceptively Hao Jichao noticed his inappropriate presence. Thus, he excused himself at once. Until then, he had dealt with too many incidents to be acquainted with loads of classified information, including the fact that it was Lu Shu who killed Takashima Tairatsu. Back then, Lu Shu was only perceived as a young man with incredible potential. But it was totally unexpected that he would behave like this one day. This was a power struggle between the pros, and Hao Jiqiao certainly knew better than to get himself caught up in between. After Hao Jiqiao was gone, Niating tilted his head towards Shi Xuejin. His expression was cold. Was it that funny? How long do you plan to be enemies? Shi Xuejin lowered his book, knowing that he had been exposed. Honestly speaking, I definitely did not expect him to do this first, right after he figured out the function of the Seal of Lands. Go and read your book. Niating said, still sulking, you've spent 1 year on it and you still have yet to finish it. From Niating's distress, plus 499. Shi Xuejin did not buy it. Don't vent your anger on me. I know you are upset about him. It's such a waste that the Seal of Lands is with him, said Niating coldly. But he got it with his own abilities. Do you still remember what you said when we learned that he had the seal? Let him take it. He deserved it. Shi Xuejin rebutted with a smile. Are you really going to take it back? Niating went quiet. Of course he could not, because that would breach his integrity. Nevertheless, it was still irritating to even think about it. The Seal of Lands could have been used to weaken or concentrate the spirit chi in certain areas so as to lower the risk of disasters caused by mutated species. Yet, Lu Shu had held his patience for 2 weeks and pushed the border of the seal to here only to block the spirit chi in the courtyard. Was he crazy? From Niating's distress, plus 399. At this moment, to Niating's consternation, the spirit chi was back again. What's going on? Although Niating was not the sensory type, the difference between the presence and absence of spirit chi was too apparent to go unnoticed. Without spirit chi, he could not even practice his cultivation. Simple as that. Thus, Niating was a tad confused. Did Lu Shu suddenly yield to him? In the next second, however, the spirit chi was gone again. Its disappearance was so fast that it had seemingly not returned at all. Niating raised his brows high in annoyance. What the heck? When is this going to end? From Niating's distress, plus 777. Chapter 762, The Swordplay Society. The next day, Lu Shu arrived at Luotian Cultivation College fully energized. After he had taken his revenge, he looked like a whole new person, as if he had received divine enlightenment. It was no surprise that Niating would know it was his doing, because it was no secret that the Seal of Lands was with him. Furthermore, the details of the seal had been recorded following Lu Shu's burial. Nonetheless, Lu Shu highly suspected that Niating had always known the possibility of expanding the border of the Seal of Lands. But he had purposely remained quiet about the issue. In fact, Lu Shu was right. Holy artifacts like the Seal of Lands had indeed once appeared on the record passed down from Niating and Shi Xuejin's family. However, only its function was documented, not its owner, be it past or present. Thus, Niating had decisively sent 2 people of the sensory type to Luo City once he learned that the relic of the Beimang remains was the Seal of Lands. This was because he had found descriptions of the seal in the records. Where's our teacher? Lu Shu asked cheerfully as he entered the lab. Well, Cheng Qiuqiao replied carefully, Brother Shu, do you remember that 2 weeks ago, you said that you would talk to Zhong Yutong about the matter of our teacher? Oh, really? Lu Shu was dumbfounded. He turned to look at Chen Zuan, Lu Xiaoyu, and Chao Qingzi. The first nodded his head quietly, the second was expressionless, while the third squeezed out a cold laugh. At this moment, it had been verified that there was something suspicious about Lu Shu. Despite his annoying personality, he had been a very reliable man. But this time, It was as if he had been suffering from amnesia for the past 2 weeks and his brain was fully occupied with something unknown to the rest. Lu Shu frowned. I believe that all of us should be mentally prepared. I'm serious. It is highly likely that our species research team at our Luotian Cultivation College is about to go through hell. Although I'm uncertain whether it would really happen, I suggest all of you to be prepared. Chen Zuan drew a startled breath. It was hard to remain unmoved, considering Lu Shu's emotional condition for the past 2 weeks, together with the words he had just blurted out. What did he say last time? The species research at Luotian Cultivation College was this difficult because of Niating's curse. In fact, Chen Zuan was aware of the tension between Lu Shu and Niating. They had been trying to be a pain in each other's *s for quite some time. And now, if Lu Shu was telling the truth, who else could give a cultivation college hell besides Heavenly King Nia? Furthermore, who else would target Lu Shu for no reason, given his current power and his notorious vengefulness? Thus, in conclusion, Lu Shu had angered Heavenly King Nia again. For the first time in his life, Chen Zuan wished he had been less sharp, so that he would not have felt so hopeless. Brother Shu, why must you find trouble with Heavenly King Nia? I'm sure you've got better things to do, Chen Zuan exclaimed. At this moment, Lu Shu's phone rang. It was Yu Mingyu. Lu Shu's expression grew stern after he picked up the call. In fact, he and Li Xiao could receive 10% of profits each from the Luo City black market annually. This was a huge sum of money that Lu Shu had been looked forward to. However, his bank account had been frozen by Niating. Back in those days, he transferred to Lu Xiaoyu's account 3.5 million renminbi, which he had proudly announced to be her pocket money. But now, the balance in his own pocket was running out. Although he knew that Xiaoyu would certainly return some money to him if he asked for it, the thing was, his dignity did not allow him to do so. Now that Yu Mingyu suddenly informed him of the delayed payment of his share of profits, Lu Shu's face darkened at once. He had expected Niating to cause him trouble in other ways as he blocked the spirit chi supply in the Luhai lane, but he had totally forgotten about this matter. What was money to Lu Shu? It was his life. Then, Lu Shu walked out of the lab at once with a serious look on his face. He was heading towards Zhong Yutong's office. It was a summer morning. Intense sunlight penetrated layers of clouds, casting enormous pillars of light on the land. The Luotian Cultivation College was teeming with youthful students. On the Golden Foundation Forum, many expressed their concern over whether the atmosphere in cultivation colleges would be overly serious, as it was with the image of the heavenly network. In fact, however, it was not so. Boy-girl relationships were not banned, and neither was fun and playfulness. Moreover, many teachers were commoners, and some of them were even fond of watching their students with special abilities outside lecture halls during breaks. There were serious teachers too who would not lower their heads in front of cultivation students, for the relationship between teachers and students remained the same regardless of their abilities to practice cultivation. Similarly, the students there would not look down on their commoner teachers. Mutual respect was strictly upheld. From the initiation of the Daoyuan class to the establishment of the 7 cultivation colleges, the Heavenly Network had finally trained its students into brave and perceptive members of the organization. Furthermore, the grand transition only took them 2 years to complete. When Lu Shu walked past, he noticed a crowd gathering beside the road. In between 2 trees hung a banner, under which were a few tables. The banner read, "Join the Swordplay Society today with lots of attractive welfare." The phrase, Swordplay Society, immediately reminded Lu Shu of the days he spent in the collection of gods as a spy, the carefree school life and girls' pretty thighs during sports activities. He was aware that Sakurai Yeiko was the current leader of the collection of gods. Nevertheless, the organization had faded from public attention as it was now in the process of recovery. Lu Shu sighed, wondering how that silly girl named Yeiko was doing. Were they still friends? Anyway, he did not offend her personally despite incapacitating the collection of gods. He only hoped that the collection of gods would not commit the same mistakes again under Yako's leadership. Nowadays, the collection of gods could never challenge the heavenly network again. Lu Shu took a glimpse at the banner. He believed that his swordplay skills were only second to Li Xianyi, and such societies had been organized more for fun than for the true experts. It was not specified in the school rules whether clubs and societies were allowed in cultivation colleges. Thus, many students were willing to give it a try, just like those in normal universities. Lu Shu walked on after a short glance. He had no time for such trivialities. Chapter 763, Another Divine Punishment. Dong dong dong. Zhong Yutong was sitting in his office when he suddenly heard someone knocking on his door. Come in. Zhong Yutong looked down and settled his duties. As the chief manager of Yuzhou Heavenly Network, he had many things to settle every day. The scale of the 7 major cultivation colleges was unparalleled by the rest of the realm of cultivation. Other organizations could have cultivation colleges, but they were no match for the 7 major cultivation colleges of the Heavenly Network. Under these circumstances, each principal faced the unique problem of how to run the colleges. There was no one with prior experience. Ordinary people had never taught practitioners either. Every day, Zhong Yutong had to observe whether the operations of the college were smooth and whether there was room for improvement. At first, the portraits of Lu Xiao and the rest were not on the corridors. Portraits of scientists and scholars had been there instead. But Zhong Yutong felt that this was unsuitable. Thus, he had raised this suggestion and Nie Ting accepted it. The visitor did not speak and slowly walked to the table. Zhong Yutong suddenly felt that something was not right. He looked up and saw a trident pointed at his head. From Zhong Yutong's distress, +666. If you have something to say, say it. Zhong Yutong tried to make peace. Tell me what you want. But first, put that trident down. Where is our species research specialization teacher? Huh? Lu Shu had a cold expression on his face. There is no one in the laboratory. We don't even know how to dissect our specimens. Huh? What did we drag these specimens back here for? To treat you to grilled camel? Is it good? Zhong Yutong asked. He immediately realized that he had said something wrong. Wait, don't get agitated. The trident is going to hit me. Zhong Yutong felt very depressed as the chief manager of Yuzhou. He was being threatened by his own student, but what else could he do? He was in despair as well. From Zhong Yutong's distress, +699. When will our teacher arrive? Lu Shu asked in a cold voice. Is Nie Ting not giving us a teacher on purpose? He will come very quickly. You have really misunderstood Heavenly King Nie this time, really. It was hard to recruit your teacher and he has his own affairs to deal with, thus he hasn't arrived. But he has recently set off and will arrive in half a month. Had Lu Shu really misunderstood Nie Ting? Did Nie Ting really find the best teacher for the species research specialization? Lu Shu was suddenly touched. But he then thought about his earnings from the black market that had been taken away. Ha! Ha! How could Nie Ting be so kind-hearted? Impossible. Suddenly, Lu Shu did not have much hope for this best teacher. Lu Shu calmly said, the species research specialization wanted to compete in the competition against the 7 major cultivation colleges. Zhong Yutong felt slightly awkward. You will represent the glory of our college in this competition. Each college will send out 20 people to participate. No one from the species research specialization in other schools is participating. Lu Shu laughed. Are you disrespecting me? Do you know how strong the species research specialization is? From Zhong Yutong's distress, +666. Heavenly King Nie doesn't allow you to participate. Zhong Yutong started to shift the blame. He could not bear the blame either. Ever since Lu Shu stepped into his office, he had not put down his trident. What gives him the right to do that? Lu Shu was furious. This was such a good opportunity to earn distress points, but now he could not go. Lu Shu tapped the table with his trident. Is there a law against this? Zhong Yutong looked as his fragile table was almost broken. He was distressed. You only have 5 people. One team is made up of 20. You don't have enough people.
Ha! Ha!
Don't you know why the Luotian Cultivation College species research specialization is so small? Lu Shu laughed coldly. Now you're telling me that we don't have enough people? Ahem. Indeed, we don't have enough people. Zhong Yutong finally found a proper reason and seemed to be emphasizing on it. Lu Shu turned and walked out. Wait. Zhong Yutong suddenly had an unpleasant premonition. Niating sat in the courtyard. He sensed that there was no magical energy in his surroundings. His fingers rhythmically tapped the stone table and produced a light tapping sound. To practitioners, after they had gotten used to environments with magical energy, the current environment was very strange. It was as if the air was thinner than usual. It was impossible for him to come to terms with Lu Shu. It would be impossible in his entire lifetime. Thus, Niating was thinking of a problem. Spirit Qi had no owner. But the Seal of Lands was natural. Did it have the power to dominate over Spirit Qi? Niating felt that this was not the case. There were humans because there had been magical energy on this earth. Thus, the Seal of Lands was a product of human effort. There would be a way to destroy it as well. Niating closed his eyes and pondered. His fingers continued to tap on the table. The tapping sound grew louder, but remained in the boundaries of the courtyard. The leaves started to tremble. The ground started to shake. Niating's sword energy started to test the boundaries of the Seal of Lands countless times. Niating suddenly furrowed his eyebrows. The boundaries of the Seal of Lands were very strong. The almighty ancients were very powerful. This mythical object had existed for a very long time, yet it still maintained its durability. Niating suddenly grew more interested. His fingers tapping on the stone table grew faster and faster. Shi Xuejin hastily ran out to the courtyard and roared in shock. Are you crazy? Suddenly, Niating's fingers slowed to a pause. Then, they started to tap again. Suddenly, magical energy surged towards the courtyard. After that, the stone table was suddenly reduced into dust. It had been broken by Niating and was blown away by the wind. Niating's hair moved in the wind. He stood up and calmly looked at the sky. He was happy. He had broken the boundary of the barrier. At that moment, the entire courtyard had collapsed. Shi Xuejin stood at the door of the courtyard. He wanted to cry, but there were no tears. Niating, are you crazy? Niating stood in the rubble with a joyful expression on his face. He did not reply. Suddenly, the sky darkened. Shi Xuejin suddenly looked up and exclaimed, "Divine punishment. He is going to break through." Shi Xuejin shouted, "Hurry up and leave the city. I will call Lu Shu now. There's still time. From the look of things, it will take some time before the divine punishment occurs." The divine punishment could not occur in the city. Lu Shu, who was eating, suddenly received a call from Shi Xuejin. After listening to his words, he was dumbfounded. He started to talk to himself. What? That helped Niating to break through? What the heck? Lu Shu absolutely could not stand this humiliation. Chapter 764, Sever the Divine Punishment. Lu Shu had spent so much time working on it. For the past 2 weeks, he had lost his appetite thinking about pushing the boundaries of the Seal of Lands within the capital every day. During that period of time, Lu Shu always felt that there was not enough time. He even felt that he did not have enough celestial powers, a feeling that he had not felt before. He had spent a whole 2 weeks and helped Niating to break through? What was this? He could break through just like that? According to the Seal of Lands, Niating wanted to use his power to force through the barrier of spirit qi created by the Seal of Lands. But the Seal of Lands was very powerful. Niating had exhausted his energy just by pushing the 500 square meter courtyard out of the Seal of Lands boundary. The reason why Niating could not break through during this period of time was because he could not find the way. There was no one who could tell him where to go. No one even knew what was beyond Class A, thus, no one knew how to break through Class A. Niating had wanted to find a well-matched partner for a battle, but he could not find one. This time, the Seal of Lands was very tough. It was a mythical object created according to the rules of the origins of the world. Niating fought the origins of the world as an opponent and uncovered the real meaning of breaking through Class A. Class B was the start of communication between heaven and earth. On the other hand, Class A's could resonate with heaven and earth just by breathing. What was beyond Class A? Why did it invoke a divine punishment? At that moment, Niating suddenly understood. Once he reached above Class A, he would go beyond the origins of the world to form heaven and earth, allowing the human body to get closer to the source of strength. This alteration of fate would result in a punishment from nature. The borrowing of external strength did not align with the laws of nature. Thus, the divine punishment was invoked. Prior to this, no one knew how to advance beyond Class A. This was like an obstacle game. No one knew the strategies. They did not even know where they should go. Just when Niating was in a pinch, Lu Shu had pointed him in a direction and Niating had walked on it. Lu Shu mumbled, "This fellow is messed up." Lu Shu suddenly felt that he was like Lu Li back then, when he had won the arm wrestling match. Lu Li only had one thing on his mind. This fellow was messed up. Back then, Lu Li could not understand how Lu Shu could awaken through an arm wrestling match. He started to doubt life. Now, Lu Shu could not understand how Niating had broken through the boundary of the Seal of Lands and embarked on the path towards the peak of human combat power. Lu Shu was now doubting life as well. But now, this was a serious matter. Lu Shu told Shi Xuejin about the details of when he had experienced the divine punishment back then. Although he was still unhappy with Niating, he did not want to see Niating die from the divine punishment. Niating was the backbone of the heavenly network. If Niating died, the rest of the pillars in the heavenly network would collapse as well. Lu Shu was very clear that the conflict between them was not because of a clash in morals. It was a fight, but they kept it within a very small range. Shi Xuejin silently hung up and called Niating. Earlier, he had gotten Niating to ask Lu Shu. But Niating's, "I heard that you were struck by lightning," irritated Lu Shu. Now, Shi Xuejin was busy with so many things, and his house was gone. Who did he provoke? From Shi Xuejin's point of view, both Niating and Lu Shu were messed up. From Shi Xuejin's distress, plus 399. Niating had flown to the grasslands in the north. It was an unpopulated area. His black coat flapped loudly in the wind. The dark clouds in the sky followed Niating from the capital. It was as if a world-shaking threat was brewing within the clouds. But Niating did not move. He soared above the sky and closed his eyes to rest. The divine punishment had not occurred yet. Niating's blade energy grew stronger and stronger. The animals in the surroundings started to flee in fright. The threatening clouds seemed to have frightened the animals. It also gave them time to escape. All the animals sensed danger and ran away, leaving Niating alone. If someone entered this area, they would probably be able to hear the loud and clear sound of a sword being unsheathed. This was Niating's sound of Tao. A few hours passed. Suddenly, Niating saw a few black spots in the distance. As they approached, he realized that they were the few Class A's in the world. Li Xianyi, Chen Bailey, Cloudy, Tiger Ji, the bishop, the saint. Li Xianyi stood with Chen Bailey, while Cloudy stood with Tiger Ji. There were two identical ironclad puppets attached to their black coats. They seemed very dignified. The saint was a Caucasian. He wore simple linen clothing. He calmly looked in Nie Ting's direction. The bishop seemed to have aged significantly, while Chen Bailey and Li Xianyi seemed to be getting younger. Even Nie Ting looked like a young man. After one's lifespan had been extended, their vitality would be restored. But the bishop was different. He was still aging, which was very strange. To be honest, the Class A experts looked down on the bishop, as he did not advance to Class A through his own efforts. Taking shortcuts was not an indicator of his strength. Everyone had felt the change and knew that someone was about to break through Class A, thus, they had come to observe. No one had found a way to break through, but Nie Ting had. They definitely had to take a look. The barrier was continuously being destroyed. Perhaps someone else would follow in Nie Ting's footsteps and break through in the future. Of course, the saint, the bishop, and the puppet masters had other motives, such as sabotaging Nie Ting's route to advancement. Once Nie Ting breaks through the bottleneck, the structure of the realm of cultivation would change again. The heavenly network would immediately surpass all the organizations in the world. No one wanted to see this. Because no one knew how strong Nie Ting would become after advancing. As the 6 Class A experts surrounded him, Nie Ting continued to close his eyes and rest. It was as if he had not been affected at all. He was like a towering mountain under the clouds. No one dared to step up and fight Nie Ting. The atmosphere seemed to have solidified. There was only the sound of Nie Ting slowly unsheathing his sword. The sword would be fully unsheathed at any moment, but it was as if it were waiting for something. Suddenly, there was a roar of thunder. A purple thunderbolt struck. Nie Ting was very far away from the clouds, but the thunderbolt reached him in a blink of an eye. Clang! Everyone froze. The saint, who had been very quiet, looked up and saw Nie Ting strike the thunderbolt as if he was about to open the sky and divide the earth. His sword had been on standby for a very long time. It was as if all of Nie Ting's energy had been channeled into the sword and cut through time and space. It was as if the King of Swords had arrived. Chapter 765, The Rainy Night 17 years ago. Nie Ting's blade energy unparalleled even among the forebears as they were invented by himself. The path to such supreme swordplay cost him a whole 30 years and an unimaginable amount of hard work. And now, one slash of his sword could destroy all creatures on a piece of land. And the slash against the divine punishment was, just like how Hai Gongzi had put it, unstoppable. The sudden divine punishment was like a colossal will from the heavens. As it clashed with Nie Ting's blade energy, an enormous blast forced all stalks of grass towards the ground, leaving broken stems across the surface of the earth. The look on the saints and the others' faces turned serious. As Class A's, all of them were aware what that slash meant. Standing tall on the peak of Class A, Nie Ting had mustered all his strength and was aiming to break through the juncture of life and death with a single slash. He was invincible. In an instant, the saint and the bishop made their moves at the same time. The saint raised his hand and sent a gust of sharp blades of air towards Nie Ting. The wild storm instantly turned black soils onto the surface. The sight was impressive. Meanwhile, the bishop held his staff high. Like chains, the silver radiance surrounded Nie Ting at once. The saint hissed at the bishop, "Get lost." Fires burned in his eyes, as if taking Nie Ting's life was a supreme honor. His voice was filled with absolute confidence and arrogance. As the most powerful man in North America, he rejected any other Class A's in joining his Hun of Nie Ting. The bishop replied with a grin. Then, the silver light wrapped the saint inside as well. "What an insignificant skill," roared the saint, as he separated the storm into 2 gusts and pushed one towards the bishop. The explosion of the air was like the sound of a tsunami. As expected, a battle broke out between the saint and the bishop. In an instant, the battlefield descended into chaos. With a ring, broken stems of grass soared high into the sky. Tens of thousands of invisible aura blades fired out from Li Xianni's sea of qi. Each blade attached itself to a grass stalk and shot towards the bishop. At that moment, everything between the heaven and earth could be Li Xianni's sword. However, an unexpected twist happened at this instant. Cloudy and Tiger Ji, who had been looked on coldly since the start, suddenly took action. The two ironclad puppets hurled their fists hard, distorting the atmosphere around. Their target was Li Xianni. Cloudy laughed coldly from under her black cloak. Do you still remember the rainy night 17 years ago? Tiger Ji laughed loudly. We, the puppet masters, will take our revenge today. We will slaughter the Golden Foundation after taking your life. In fact, there were internal conflicts between the puppet masters, which was inevitable given the immense power each one of them held. Nonetheless, all of them were united together as a group of lackeys under the throne. Moreover, they viewed this as their honor. The bishop scorned. You always say that everyone under the throne is a lackey. Are you not speaking ill of yourselves too? Tiger Ji dismissed him with a condescending laugh. It is our honor to be lackeys for our king. And you are not even qualified for this. It sounded contradicting, but more like a matter of fact when it came out of Tiger Ji. On the rainy night 17 years ago, they had come and waited patiently for a suitable chance. But an ambush took them by surprise. That night, out of the 4 puppet masters, 2 were killed in the fight, and it took more than a decade for the survivors to regain their power. Despite their lack of cohesion as a team, it violated the will of the king to kill the other puppet masters. Thus, the desecrator would have to amend their wrongdoings with their life. Li Xianni's robe flapped in the wind. The aura blades suddenly altered their trajectories and fired towards the iron puppets. Meanwhile, Chen Bailey blocked the saint's way without hesitation. A grand battle had broken out on the vast expanse of grassland like an unstoppable storm. As if no one else was around, Nie Ting soared into the sky and waved his blade relentlessly towards the divine strike from the heaven. His face was expressionless, but there was a sense of fearlessness in him. With each strike of his blade, he felt increasingly confident. Moreover, his vitality, which had opened up as he resonated with the heaven and earth, had now gathered together to form another universe. In the past, every strike of his had to draw energy from his surroundings. But now, an enormous amount of spirit qi gushed into his body and was instantly assimilated with his own power. At the center of this vast battlefield, Nie Ting was fully concentrated on his breakthrough. His attention was undivided. At this moment, Nie Ting became the first truly powerful man after the thousands of years of magical deficiency. It was totally unexpected that the first grand battle of the magical era had suddenly been ignited as Nie Ting completed his breakthrough. Everyone was craving for a change when Nie Ting was about to disrupt the balance of the cultivation world. In the past, the cultivation realm was like a seesaw on which all powerful individuals or organizations were balanced by exerting influence on one another. But following Nie Ting's breakthrough, the plank would tilt towards Nie Ting alone. Li Xianni let out a hearty laugh as he faced the 2 ironclad puppets. This is not your king's world. Die. At that instant, the 2 puppets actually fell backwards under the impact of the tens of thousands of swords made of grass stalks. With a cold laugh, the 2 puppet masters joined forces and flew towards Li Xianni. At the same time, wooden puppets sprang out of their sleeves towards Li Xianni. The puppets pulled red strings across their arms, splitting the atmosphere apart. At this critical moment, a lance of lightning shot towards them from the other side of the grassland. As Gungnir pierced through the air, the entire world seemed to be trembling under its force. Tiger Ji and Cloudy exchanged a brief look from under their cloaks and retreated immediately. When Li Xianyi tried to block them, he realized, to his surprise, that the puppet masters had suddenly lost all their interest in the fight, as if they had encountered an unexpected event. Li Xianyi was confused. As the most powerful individuals, the puppet masters ought not to fear anyone. Moreover, they did not seem to be in fear. Rather, they simply had no intention to continue with the fight. The battle between the two longtime enemies, the Golden Foundation and the puppet masters, ended just as quickly as how it started. In the blink of an eye, Coral had arrived, her silver-golden hair flying behind her. When Li Xianyi saw Coral, he asked hesitantly, "Are you Lu Shu's?" Coral blushed at once due to shyness. "I know you, Mr. Li. But how do you know I like Lu Shu?" Li Xianyi was stunned. What? What he had wanted to ask was whether she was the girl who had almost married Lu Shu. But now his train of thoughts had been disrupted. What on earth happened to this girl? Li Xianyi mused. The twist in conversation was so sudden that Li Xianyi did not know how to continue anymore. Suddenly, Chen Bailey, who was guarding Nie Ting, commented in a low voice from nearby, "Very good. This foreign girl speaks Chinese, not some weird language." Impressive. Coral was speechless. Li Xianyi too.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show. Try to look